Does shame have a place for a child of God? According to most modern American Christians, I can't speak for the whole world, but we seem to think that shame just doesn't exist as soon as you come to know Jesus. And I'm pretty sure that that comes from, it's like a rebellion, a retaliation against what I fully agree was a bad interpretation of, I don't know, life, Jesus. But, historically, there have been a lot of people claiming the name of Jesus and using shame as a weapon to try to bludgeon people into, proper behavior. And that's entirely wrong. And it's, you know, what shame is. Shame is the idea of, there's what I am and what I should be. And that gap in between is, we recognize the gap. And if you identify yourself by that gap and say, like, oh, you're a failure because of not reaching that, and that's shame. That's what the idea of shame is. Of saying, oh, I should have been this and I'm not. And when you take that upon yourself, that's what shame really is. And trying to put that on somebody else to make them behave better, and it's like, oh, well, get up here, reach that standard. Yeah, that's wrong. Jesus never does that. And he never called us to do that. But I don't think it's right for us to try to just completely rebel and throw that all away just because people have done it wrong. Because Jesus talked about shame a number of times, and I think it's worth still having that conversation. Because, like, shame first appears in the Bible actually as a lack of shame. Genesis 2:25 is famous. Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed. And, like, we miss that just like a dozen verses later, after they sin, the very first thing they experience is shame. Suddenly they realize their nakedness and they're, sewing fig leaves to hide themselves. And then you can go, it's from the very beginning of the book there in Genesis to the very end in Revelation. Jesus starts talking about being naked and ashamed. And that caught my eye, that it's like in Revelation 3:18, it's Jesus talking to the church of Philadelphia, and he says, like, buy garments from me of white linen so that you won't be ashamed at your nakedness. And it's like, the whole white linen thing, that might have some meaning, I don't know, but these garments keep showing up. And it's a garment to cover your nakedness so you won't be ashamed. You see it again, Revelation 16:15, almost exactly the same. He's like, where he says, I'm going to be coming unexpectedly like a thief. And blessed is the person who keeps their garment with them so they won't have to walk around naked and ashamed. And then it's finally in Revelation 19:8 that those get explained. And these garments have been given to the church to wear, these white linen garments. And you get half a verse that says the white linen is the righteous acts of the saints. And so it's like good deeds is basically what that boils down to. Which is a weird thing to find in, in the context of the gospel of Jesus, because it's not a works-based righteousness, but yet this is the righteous acts of the saints. It's their good works are the garment that covers the nakedness, and if without having that, they feel shame in Jesus' presence. And so, trying to think through that, look at it that it's a lot like the book of James, and he talks about, faith that results in good works. And it's like, if your faith is genuine enough to result in salvation, then that faith is also going to result in good works. Like, it's just a natural outflow. And it's those good works. It's not like these are, checking off a list of good deeds you need to do more good than bad or anything like that. But it's just, Jesus said, if you love me, you'll obey my commands. And my command is to love one another, to love people. He talked about, if you do something as simple as give a cup of cool water to somebody in my name, he takes that as a service to him. And it's, of course, there's a great commission to go into all the world and preach the gospel and teach people to obey his commands, which is to love each other. And it's just, these things are what Christians are supposed to be doing. Following Jesus is not saying a prayer and sitting back and waiting for heaven. Like, we are supposed to be on a mission. And if you're not doing that mission, you don't have these good works, you don't have these linen garments, therefore there's nothing covering your nakedness. You feel exposed and ashamed when Jesus shows up and goes, so what you been doing? And this is what he's like pleading, saying, don't let yourself end up in that situation. We've got stuff to do. Just get on board and let's go. Let's do this together. And like, that idea of shame is something, the Jesus definition of shame that he wants us to avoid. It's like a warning about potential shame. It's nothing that he's putting on us saying, oh, you didn't measure up. But he's saying, you will be so bummed out. Like, this would be the most disappointing thing of heaven. Like, heaven is this, perfection and joy and love and God's presence. And it's like, and it'll be a bummer for you if you get there and go, man, there's so much more I could have done. Why wasn't I doing that? And, I mean, we're always going to probably say, well, I wish I could have done more. But it's like, if you look and say, I sat and binge watched Netflix instead of talking to anybody or whatever. I'm not anti-Netflix. I like shows and movies and stuff. But I'm talking to you on the internet, for crying out loud. But then, like, we have things to do. And, like, we don't want to be left naked and ashamed. We want to be on mission with Jesus. That's the whole idea.